Unlock the power of the Merkaba to jump dimensions. Warping space-time with your energy body to travel the universe. Magic is nothing more than being able to warp space-time to your will. The Merkaba is a sacred 4D geometric symbol which contains all forms within itself. Maoshan sorcerers discovered how to combine spheres and triangles with their energy bodies to open space-time portals. This is the sacred combination of spheres and triangles, as well as the 8-sided symbol which actually unfolds into the Merkaba. Practices that I have been sharing with you on the shop in the thunderwizard.com website are practices that will allow you to jump into different dimensions. When you master this energy, you can then take it into meditation and use it to literally shift dimensions like you would change numbers on a combination lock. We don't live in a single universe. We live in a universe of probabilities. The universe that you experience is the one that you unconsciously choose and manifest. Using these practices allows you to tap into the Merkaba so that you can shift into the dimension that you prefer to live in. Go to thunderwizard.com and click on Shop. Solar Flash Update 2024. The Solar Flash will create 3 new Earths, a 2D, a 3D, and a 5D. Each human must choose. Get my books on Amazon, Kindle, or Audible, or at michaelwilliamdenny.com. Not the kind that abduct, those are something else, but higher dimensional beings of light. And they have been educating me on the nature of the multiverse, things that you cannot learn in the third dimension, things you cannot learn from science or religion. And one of those things is that they let me know that there was going to be an ascension event. And they showed me in a vision which was tailored to me and all of the symbolism that I respond to psychologically, so I won't get into that. But it was very clear the message that there was going to be an event that everybody would see, and it would be an event that would be of a highly profound spiritual nature. Oh. The truth is that everything you always have most deeply desired is the truth. You've wanted to be loved. You've wanted to be seen. You've wanted to be accepted. You've wanted to be safe. And that is the truth. When we break through the barrier of the third dimension and we connect to higher dimensional anything, just anything outside of the third dimension, the first thing that hits you is the unbelievable love. That's the only thing that exists. And that you experience how beautiful and loved and special you are. Hello, my fellow human light being friends. Hope you're still with me. I accidentally hit the stop streaming button when I meant to do something else. Looks like we're still good to go. So, this is Saturday evening, 8:30. We're going to be continuing our discussion about the Grand Solar Flash 5D Ascension. The ascension is happening, and it cannot be stopped. I'm going to talk to you today some more about what my reality is like in my higher Earth octave, things that I've experienced and things that I've learned. I just want to check in with you a little bit first before we do that. So first off, if you came here because you wanted to do the live stream meditation, I'm not going to do a meditation today. Once again, I'm still allowing my energy, my meridian system to heal. It's really important that I understand what happened on the 14th. As I told you guys a few weeks ago, I was told by my light being friends, they gave me a message and they said that when I was in meditation, they said, we need to let you know, and here's how my brain interpreted it. They said, we need to let you know that you're going to be attacked. And I flipped out when I heard that, because I'm like, that doesn't sound like something I want to be a part of. I have no interest in that. And I didn't know what it meant. And they came back and it was told to me a second time. And I just said, listen, guys, that's not the way to talk to me. Whatever it is you have to say, find another way to say it. And as time went on, I kept, every now and then I would ask and I'd say, okay, am I going to get attacked online? Nothing. And I said, am I going to get attacked physically? And I got a huge response, which I took to mean a yes. And so I didn't know what that meant. But in order to just keep my sanity, I said, I can't worry about this. I can't worry about this. So I didn't. In any case, a few weeks before we did the August 14th live meditation, we did a meditation, and afterwards the light beings were extremely ecstatic and they were celebrating, and they were saying that those of us who did the meditation, that we did it. They said, you did it. You defeated the dark forces. It's all downhill from here. And they were very happy. And I was like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. Nothing in my external world has changed. And for the next few days, they kept saying that. In fact, the next time we did a live stream meditation, they responded the same way. And when I went out, they were just kind of like, yeah, it's already, you did it. Watch what happens. Watch what's going to happen now. Everything's going to change. So, as always, I will, okay, whatever. Looked around. My physical reality isn't manifesting any of that. Then when we did the meditation on the 14th, before we did it, I was I was in war mode. I was absolutely 100%. I felt this intense, like I'm going to war against evil enemies and I'm going to destroy them. And so I was very focused in that meditation. And by the way, just let me once again let you know that on the 14th, we opened a portal. We opened a portal that goes straight from the galactic center into the center of the sun. So whenever you're doing your interdimensional meditations, you feel free to go with your guides, of course, go to the galactic center and chant the Huar breath, chant energy directly to the center of the sun. If you need to, go and watch that video again. I've uploaded it to the channel. It's not as good quality. You might as well watch the original on the live section of this. But that is definitely open and that's there. And as soon as I am back and I feel like I'm good to go, that's what I'm gonna do. I don't know that, I mean, I'm open to whatever happens, but that's going to be my plan, is I'm just going to keep going back there and keep sending that energy and keep shifting the earth up. So I just want to acknowledge, now that it's been a couple of weeks now, maybe a little bit more than that, in hindsight, I'm able to look back and I think that we really accomplished something probably far more profound than we can understand. Let's take stock of where we are. Where we are is a simulation. This is not reality. This is a simulation. And the experience that you have here as a human feels very intense. And it is. I'm a human like you. I know exactly what it's like. But the only thing that is happening is that your perception is focused on this tiny three-dimensional projection. Again, imagine playing a video game and you've got an avatar in there that you've created that isn't you. But imagine if you were just so focused on that avatar that everything else went away. And you were so focused on it that, nobody could get to you. Nobody could walk up to you and say, hey, you'd be so, imagine it's a three-dimensional game. You're just completely, totally wrapped up in it. That's what's happening here. And so when we go into interdimensional meditation and we go out in our astral bodies, even if you don't have that big of an experience, and I wrote about that in my books. Before I go any further, there's a lot of people contacting me. Listen, if you want to get the most out of what I say, you want to get the most out of my channel, you've got to put some time and effort into learning what I teach, because 80% of the questions I get on the YouTube comment section, I don't want to say, make sure that this isn't something I haven't addressed or answered or taught in my books or my videos. So it does serve you to actually put time and effort into that. I've written 2 books about interacting with higher dimensional extraterrestrials and what really goes on in those interactions. So I just assume you already know that if you haven't already experienced it. Having said that, I understand if your experience isn't all that, if you don't think you're having that huge of an experience. When I was doing that meditation 2 weeks ago, my experience was that I was having a really great meditation. I felt a lot of energy. I was really absorbed in it, and I afterwards, if you look at the video afterwards, I'm in a very calm, mellow state. There's a lot of DMT flowing through my brain. But my experience was I just had a cool meditation. And let me be clear, I do these meditations because I was given, I'm not going to say I was instructed to do so, but ET sort of guided me into saying, this is what you're here to do. You're the only one that can do it. And so I started doing the live stream meditations because my communications with them had led me to believe this was really important for me. That in hindsight, they said a bunch of other stuff which sounded completely fantastical, and which was, you're going, sorry, it's embarrassing to say it, but they said, you're going to bring 5D shift. You're the one that's going to do it. We can't do it. You have to do it. And they've showed me who I was out there, which I want you to have the experience of seeing who you are out there. And who I am out there is not this tiny third dimensional human. This is why I've become so obsessed with, all of these cool, thumbnails that I keep, creating and putting up here. Because that's just one of the things that I am out there. And the light beings treat me like something far, far even beyond them, whether they're just being nice or whether that's real, but they've been telling me that even 2 years ago, before I did this, they were telling me, you have no idea how powerful you are. You have no idea what you're going to accomplish. And they said, it's very important that you believe what we're telling you about who you are. And what they're talking about is out there, not here. Here, I'm just this guy on YouTube who has this, unknown channel, and I teach a bunch of stuff and I talk a bunch of crazy stuff, and that's who I am down here. I know I've helped a lot of people, so that's great, but that's not who I am. This is what I mean when I talk about awakening to who you are. So, I'm just glancing at the live stream here. If you're letting this 3D reality take you down, it means that your focus is very limited on 1% of your essence. It's a waste of energy. Have all of the feelings that you have and work through whatever issues you need to work through. But when you realize who you really are, these, what little, video game characters do to you and say to you is nothing. It's nothing in comparison to the rest of the stuff that is out there. So in any case, my point of that was to talk about what we have accomplished. This was absolutely enormous. I made a whole video about it. I won't take the time to talk about it now. I want to address a couple of things that people have brought up about that, which are actually very good points. First one is, somebody said, very rightly so, that was pointing out that both of these gentlemen have a public stance on what's going on in the Middle East. And I completely agree with you. I completely agree with you that what is going on there is horrific and horrible. And one of the lies and one of the manipulations that is working is the same kind of lie that happened during the Iraq War. Now, maybe you're not old enough to remember that. If you are, you remember. During that, you had two choices according to the media. You could either be pro-war, which meant that you supported the troops. If you were anti-war, it meant that you didn't support the troops who were dying and putting themselves on the line for your freedom. Those were the only two options you were given. You couldn't say, but the war is unnecessary or unjust, because if you did, you would be labeled as somebody who hated the troops, which would be the same as wanting them dead. And so people were allowed themselves to get manipulated by that. Same thing happened during if you didn't want this, then you were an and those were your only two choices. You either wanted people to be healthy or you were an anti-er. Those are the only two choices they gave you. Same thing is going on in the Middle East. Either you are pro-Hamas or anti-Israel. Those are the only choices that you're given. When the reality is that the HAMAS was completely contrived by the dark forces. What happened there, the attack on the innocent civilians by the HAMAS, was orchestrated. It was orchestrated. How else would they have gotten over the wall? How else would they have gotten past all the security? Somebody opened that and said, go do that. It was orchestrated so that then they would have justification to go in and flatten everything. So I can be completely 100% in support of Palestinians, and I can be 100% completely in support of defending Jewish people in Israel. I can have both of those positions. I don't have to choose between being pro-HAMAS and or anti-Israel. There's a difference between Zionism and Judaism. All right? So when people point out that both of these guys have a public stance that seems to support the flattening of innocent people, I completely understand where you're coming from. My belief, based on things that have been said by Trump, is that Trump is pandering to the base. I don't think he sees it. I think he understands what's really going on. I could be wrong about that. RFK is incredibly smart. I can't imagine he'd be so stupid as to be locked into that. But both of these guys have to do that to play in this game. Now, having said that, I'm not saying I support somebody making a public stance that goes against that. But watch what's going to happen. My prediction is that this is going to come to an end. Once this guy gets into office, if he does, this will come to an end very quickly. I'm happy to be wrong about that. The other thing that people pointed out about Trump is that he was responsible for the introduction of this. And so, therefore, he's evil and wrong. And what I pointed out to somebody was, in the beginning, so was I. I was pro. I didn't get it because I was hesitant, but I thought that that was the right thing to do. I was completely, totally hypnotized. You go back 4 years, I actually talk about how 9/11 was not an inside job. That's how much I've changed since then. So it doesn't mean when I tell you how amazing this is and how significant this is, that it means that I agree with every public stance that they have, because I'm not political. I'm not doing that game anymore. What I'm saying is I can see that the structure of power is getting flipped on its head, because what you see here is a complete flipping of the poles. Things have gone completely backwards, and that is a good sign. It means that the power structure is collapsing, and it means that everything is going to get flipped on its head. All right? So I won't spend any more time talking about that. I made a whole video about it. What I want to do again now is I want to talk about, I have to cover this up because I'm getting distracted by all the stuff in the chat there. So, all right. So what I want to talk about now is where it is that we're going. So let me just check in with you again. If I'm boring the hell out of you, you won't hurt my feelings. If you want to come back later when we're doing a meditation, you won't hurt my feelings. But in case any of you are in the same place I am, I want you to know you're not alone. Where I'm at is, as I've been saying, is that I am getting so focused on making this shift happen, making this 5D shift happen, that I really just don't have any interest in anything down here anymore. I still love to serve. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not like miserable and depressed. I don't want to off myself or anything like that. I enjoy my life, I enjoy what I do, but I just find that I have no interest or desire or energy to put into anything associated with investing in the third dimension. I can't even imagine what it would take for me to get into a relationship at this point. The idea of getting involved in somebody's life and finding out about your kids and let's go, walk downtown and look and let's go on I just don't, I'm not interested in any of it. I don't have any interest in investing in any kind of third dimensional reality. All of my effort is going into thinking about how I can make this shift happen. And I made a video, and part of that I talked about how I'm focusing on, if there's a way that I can shift, I'm going to see if I can do that. And I told you the ways that I'm doing that. By the way, all of the stuff that I teach, all of the practices I teach are ways to do that. And in fact, the 3-1s meditation, which you can find here at the 90-day challenge, the 3-1s meditation is at least 2,000 years old, as I understand it, or close to that. And it was the first, in fact, the first practice of the Taoists. The first major practice of the Taoists, and it was esoteric and it was hidden. And the writings about it say that if you can get to the point where you can visualize the 3-1s perfectly, these are the 3 centers of the body, and you can align yourself with them, that you'll shift. You'll leave this reality. They have all kinds of flowery ways of talking about it. They say that you'll be lifted up into the heavens in a chariot in the full light of day and all that. But what they mean is you will leave this reality and go to the next one. So if you're wanting that, these practices come from that same tradition, all of them, and you can do them. I've got them here in the 90-day challenge, and also there's the practices in the shop, especially the 5-element practices. I'm going to make a whole video about that, about what those practices are really doing. It's going to take me a while to figure out a way to get my head into a way to show you visually and physically what that's all about. But I now know what all this stuff is. I now know what this stuff is about and where it's going. So hey, I'm happy for anything to change. That's just where I'm at right now. So in case you are having crazy experiences, I want to share with you some of the things that I have experienced, and I want to share with you the experience I'm going to share with you now lasted for, I want to say, probably a month or 2. So that's the time frame that I'm having all of these experiences, and I'm narrowing down what they are. And I made notes about it because I knew if I didn't, I'd probably forget. But I talked to you last time about the being whose name is Tiloktama. And so my fiance, who passed away, who I saw as my soulmate, she passed away. She came to me energetically and said, I want to introduce you to somebody. This is somebody that is going to be a support, be there for you, be your Shakti or whatever, she said. And there was this light being, feminine light being. And this is happening when I'm in my throne, up in my 5D world. This is when I'm in meditation. This is when these things are happening. Bear in mind, as this is happening, I'm feeling huge amounts of energies. It's not just I'm having a fantasy in my head. There's all kinds of crazy energies are going through me that are incredibly powerful. If it weren't for that, I would just think, oh, that's an interesting fantasy I'm having. But when you combine it with those undeniable energies, this is what gives me a lot of understanding that what's happening is not just in my head. So she shows up, and I think I told you that then everybody there in my world is dancing around and they're very happy, and there's going to be this marriage. And I'm, what? Oh, I'm getting married? Oh, okay. Again, I'm just having this meditation. I don't know what it means. I always say yes. So I get married to this woman, and it's going to be a marriage that's going to unite Earth with another higher dimensional civilization and create a connection and all of that. And so whenever I would go to my throne in meditation, for a while, I don't do this now, but for a long period of time, what was happening is I would go into meditation and my guide would show up, and very often he would say, you have appointments, you have beings that, you have business, you have, universal, multi-dimensional business that you have to do. So I would say, okay, so I'd show up and I'd go there and I'd sit in my throne, and beings from other planets would show up in other dimensions, some physical, some non-physical, and I would, answer questions and do things, and we would talk about, interdimensional policies of, whatever, all kinds of, kingly sort of administrative stuff. And of course, I'm being empowered and I'm learning as I go. And so as I'm doing that, she would sit on my left, and somebody would come in, to see the king, and they would come in, and she would lend me her energy so that I could have a greater empathic connection, so I could understand emotionally where this person was coming from. And so her name was Tiloktama, and that was translated to me as she who loves you completely. All right, so we talked about her a little bit. Now I want to tell you about the next being. So what also started happening is that when I'd go there in my astral body, I'd go to my throne, and if I've told you about it, if you've looked it up, in this beautiful forested area by the ocean, and I'd sit in my crystal throne, and there would be a mantis being, looked like that, and he would come and actually, if I'm remembering correctly, the mantis being that came to me a couple years ago and started teaching me, he said, I'm going to I can't remember, it was a family member of his, and I can't remember if it was his son or his nephew or who it was, I can't remember. But he introduced me to this mantis being who was younger, and he said, I want you to train him. I want you to teach him. And at the beginning, this was still a long time ago, so I was like, you want me to teach a mantis being, a higher dimensional being? He says, yes, I want you to teach him. So this mantis being was there, and he was my protector. So he would, when I'm sitting in my throne, to the left of me is my empath interpreter, and to my right is this very powerful mantis being, this young mantis being. And so he was there to protect my aura and to protect my my boundaries, so that I could do my job without, becoming emotionally compromised or energetically compromised or whatever. And he came to me and he said, because I was treating him in a certain way, and he said that he wanted, I got it written down here, he wanted to be my son, and he wanted me to be his father guru, and as I just said that, I just felt a huge jolt. And, that was very strange, and, again, very, very fantastical, and very, just sounds really out there and egotistical and all of that. But whenever I'm out there, I say yes. I never say no to what's happening. I say yes. And so that's what he wanted. He wanted to be my son, and he wanted me to be his father guru, and he wanted to learn from me. And I said, so how is it you're going to learn from me? And he says, by allowing me to do this job, I'm going to watch and I'm going to learn from you. And I said, okay, that sounds like a great idea. And so I would show up and I would sit in my throne, and there would be my empath wife on my left side and my son protector on my right. And then, let's see, let me see who he is. So his name is Tilauktara. Tilauktara. So again, I say that, I feel a huge amount of energy. And for a while I was chanting these names, even silently in my meditation, because their energy was very powerful. So I would chant these names and I would get filled with their energy. And when I would chant his name, Tilauktara, I would feel this power flow through my whole body. And so his name means he who protects and guides you. That's his name. So things are going to get very interesting here very quickly. So then the next thing that happened, if you remember, if I told you the Tiloktama, she was introduced to me, this very beautiful light being. I don't think he had a physical body. He was from, I think he was from the 9th dimension, and she was from the 9th dimension. Which means when you get to that level, you don't need a physical body anymore. And so he came to me, and he was, her father, and introduced me to her and all that. And then at some point, he started showing up, and he would stand behind me. He would stand behind me, and he had a connection to my crown chakra, so he was sort of like a higher self. And his name is Tilongtum. Tilongtum. And I feel a power when I say that. And he said, he who knows you well and deeply. And so for a while, I don't know how long it was. It felt like a long time, felt like months. I don't know how long it was, but it was for a long time. I would go into meditation and these beings would be there. My wife would be on my left to me, my son, my protector on my right, and then the father figure, higher self, advisor would be behind me. And then I would go and do my business. I would be in there, and beings from other dimensions and other civilizations and all that would come and show up. And I'd be there with my advisors, my retinue. And so they would help me and empower me as I was interacting and doing business with. When I say business, of course, I don't mean money. I mean, we're taking care of the universe. We're taking care of the multiverse. We're protecting and empowering and all that good stuff. And I learned a lot that this is what's happening on higher levels. There are councils. I don't know how many councils there are, but there's councils of beings that get together. And because people in higher dimensions can do multiple things at once, that they're constantly in council, constantly working through things and making decisions on how to best empower the multiverse and helping souls to do their thing. Anyway, so I just wanted to say that, and deities are real. So deities aren't just these symbols that you pray to so you can feel better. Deities are people. They're just on a much higher dimensional level. And they are working through their karma still. They still have things that they need to do. Shiva, Kali, Odin, Thor, Zeus, whatever the deities are, they still have functions that they have to do for their own continued awakening, their own continued evolution and enlightenment. So understand that these all of these, every deity that's ever existed is a real individual, a real personality, and they're out there doing stuff. Because they're in higher dimensions, they can interact with infinite numbers of people. So that's why, if everybody on the planet was worshiping Shiva, he wouldn't have a problem with that. He can be, he can do infinite numbers of things because of the level that he's at, that level of, whatever dimension he is, the 11th or 12th dimension, which I have to make more videos explaining to you what that means. But just know that when you go to a higher dimension, you become, like if you right now, listening to me, whoever you are, if you were to instantly realize yourself, because you are in higher dimensions, if you were to instantly realize yourself in the 5th dimension, you would be a god to the rest of us. If a 3rd dimensional human would experience you as an extremely powerful deity, because you would be able to be everywhere and do everything from our perspective. You would be able to be everywhere, do everything, and so we would worship you as a god. Now, everybody else, if you're in the 5th dimension, everybody else in the 5th dimension would see you as an equal. But it would be the same as us, trying to talk to somebody in the 2nd dimension. We can do things they can't do. And the things we can do makes us look like gods to them, if there is such a thing as 2-dimensional beings. So, just to let you know. Anyway, so I got off track there. Anyway, so I've got these 3 helpers, these 3 beings, and when I chant their names, they show up, even if I'm, out here in 3D, sitting on the couch watching TV. If I chant their names, their energy shows up. I feel it very powerfully. And so for a long time I was showing up and I was going to my 5D place, and they would be there. They'd be there waiting for me. And at one point, the most interesting thing happened, which is I got there, and I can't remember the context behind it. I don't know if I was told ahead of time what was going to happen or whatever, but what ended up happening is that they merged with me. And my protector, Tilauktara, he merged with my navel center, which is, if you know anything about the navel, that is where your strength is, your power is. That's where your sense of self comes from. Tiloktama merged with my heart. So she, remember what her job was. Her job was to help me have more compassion, more empathy, so that I could interact with people from that point. And she merged with my heart. And Tilungtum, is that his name? Yeah. Tilungtum. He merged with my crown, my 3rd eye. And then all of a sudden, when I would show up, they wouldn't physically be there. Like, they weren't standing next to me or behind me. They literally merged with me. They're now part of me. And that opened up a whole can of worms about, who we think we are. You think you're this one person sitting there. And I'm not talking about people who have multiple personalities. That's not healthy. Or people who are possessed. That's not what I'm talking about. That's a whole other thing. So I don't know exactly what that means. I don't know if these are pieces of me that's always been there, or if, because sometimes there have been times when I've gone out into meditative space where my sense of self, it's like light hits it, and there's an infinite number of rainbows that come out of there, and they're all me. And it's just, everything is so different out there. And I've come to realize that really nobody in the 3rd dimension really has even the slightest clue about what reality is. And that includes all of the saints and all of the people who've written scriptures, even Vedic scriptures. I read that stuff now and I go, oh, yep. But, most people's interpretation of it is just so rudimentary and so far off, including myself, a couple years ago. I didn't have any idea. I had no clue what reality was about. I was doing my best to figure it out. It turns out that my instincts were pretty good most of the time. But what's really out there, it has no equivalent. And what I saw in my, the first vision that I was given when I saw the event. So if you watched my video, what the event was for me was that I was walking in the Himalayas, and there were these celebrations and rituals were going on. And I knew something was coming. Everybody was gathered and they were watching some royalty or something come down the mountain path. And as this ritual was going on, I looked up in the sky and there was this something was coming out of the clouds, and it was really big and powerful. And out of the clouds came this, just wait for it because it makes sense. What came out of the clouds was a crucifix. And it was a shiny pewter, just cheap sort of shiny crucifix made out of pewter that you would get, costume jewelry or something like that. It looks like something some Catholic grandmother has lying around. And there was a Jesus on it, but the Jesus was only half. And his body was coming out of the crucifix from the navel up, and he was on the cross. And he was just like that. And I felt all this energy, and I felt everybody in the world go, because like they saw God coming. And I went, crap. So the Christian thing was right this whole time. I was so disappointed. And I went, oh well. And then I looked up, and I'm looking up at this crucifix, and the Jesus on it comes alive, and he's very frightened and worried, and he looks up behind him, up in the clouds, and he sees something, and he goes, it frightened the crap out of him, and then I woke up. And so what I took from that, and again, people have said, that's not what that dream means. Now, be clear. This dream was given to me. I know what this stuff represents for me. If you have a vision of the Ascension event, you're going to get probably your specific symbolism for you. And I'm not going to try and, tell you what I think your dream meant, unless you don't know. And then you ask, that's different. So I know what this means. What it means is that people's third dimensional understanding of spirituality is going to be destroyed. Meaning that right now people can only conceptualize of God or spirit in a certain way according to whatever their religious preference is. I grew up as a Christian, so that was my, old, outdated, limited religious understanding. And I have wanted this. So, this is why I was shown this, because it was, you're right, all of that's going to go away. So people, when this event happens, which I would like to believe that there is going to be a singular culminating event in the sky. When everybody sees it, people are going to have a very profound spiritual experience, depending on whatever their religion is. And as soon as they have that, when they get hit with the energy and they awaken and they evolve, they're going to go beyond whatever their religious limitations are. So, people's absolute need to believe in a savior, their need to believe in Jesus. Even people who know that the Bible is nonsense, that the Bible is filled with incredibly devaluing, horrifically, narcissistically abusive teachings, people still need to believe it, and they make up stuff that doesn't exist. Like, well, the original Bible said this, and the Bible has been changed so many times. None of that is true, by the way. The Bible has been the same. It was, it's been the same for 2,300 years or whenever it was that first the Old Testament was created, and it was built off of other mythologies, some of it. And then the New Testament was created by the elites of both the Romans and the Jewish elites got together, and they created a religion that would, on the one hand, allow the Romans to dominate the Jews who didn't want to be part of the Roman conquest of Israel. They didn't want that. And so the Jewish elites wanted to be part of the Roman elite. And they wanted access to their money. And, because the Roman Empire, when it was at its height, there still has been nothing that has equaled the amount of power and money that they had. Unbelievable amounts of wealth and power. And the Jewish elite wanted that. And so they got together and they conspired with the Roman elites to come up with a religion that they hoped would be able to pacify the rebellious Jews so that the Jews would pay their taxes and become part of the Roman economic system. So they created the Christian religion. They made up a Messiah. They called him Jesus, everybody was called Jesus back then. His main teaching back then was give unto God what was God's and give unto Caesar what is Caesar's, which is a fancy way of saying pay your taxes. That's all that meant. People read into it, it means something else. All that Jesus was supposedly saying was pay your taxes to the Romans. But people so desperately need to believe in a Savior. And they will take the New Testament and they will edit out all of the things that they understandably don't like. They'll take out all the references to hell. They'll take out all of the references, that are really horrific, and they'll keep all the stuff that they like God is love, and forgive. All the stuff that they liked about Jesus. By the way, the Sermon on the Mount, which is a really great teaching, that was stolen. That was a sermon that was being taught at that time. There were a lot of Jewish rabbis going around and they would teach that. They would literally recite that. That was stolen and grafted into the New Testament. All this stuff that you think Jesus said, Jesus never existed. He's a made-up character. Now, I say this now. A lot of you guys are with me. Some of you, you're bent out of shape because you still need to believe in a Savior. And you still need to have somebody tell you that you're saved and you're okay. You still need that. Your instincts have been telling you this whole time that the Bible is nonsense. Have been telling you that the Old Testament is nonsense, because it is. In case you didn't know, and again, if you haven't read my books, you can read my book, Odin Says Jesus Was a Coward, and you can find out the actual history of this. But what people call the original Bible, what ended up happening is, it is true that the Jews were sent off, and there was this thing called the Babylonian captivity. That is a real thing. And what happened is that at that time, Israel was two nations. There was Israel, which was the 10 tribes of Israel, which guess who those people are? They're the Palestinians. In case you want to know who the Palestinians are, they're the other 10 tribes of Israel. The other two tribes were the Judeans and the Levites. which are the priestly class and the ruling class. The priestly class and the ruling class split off, and they created Judea. And then the rest of what we would consider to be Palestine was inhabited by the other 10 Hebrew tribes, the Palestinians. They didn't like each other because the elites split off from them and started calling them all kinds of horrible names, started calling them half-breeds. You know, you've heard of the Samaritans, right? From the New Testament. Well, what you don't know is that the word Samaritan is a pejorative. It means like half-breed gypsy. It's a horrible thing to call somebody. So that whole parable of the Good Samaritan means that Samaritans aren't good. And this one happened to be good. You have no idea all of the incredibly abusive, narcissistic garbage is in that book that you think is teaching you something good, and it's not. And so it's very painful for me to hear, you know, people of Jewish descent talking about the Palestinians in horrible ways, and they don't even know their own history. They don't know that those Palestinians are the other 10 Hebrew tribes that are their family. It's very painful for me to listen to that. But that's what happened 2,800 years ago. So the elites and the priestly class had a temple to Jehovah. Now they had stolen that god from some other tribes further north of them. And he was a war god. At the time of that, before they wrote that whole Torah down, before they wrote that down in a book, the entire, what we would call Israel and Judea, that entire place was filled with polytheists. The original religion was polytheism. And we know that archaeologically when you dig up homes around Jerusalem at that time before the Babylonian captivity, you will find altars with little, you know, graven images of the sky god and the earth mother and the, you know, all the different gods. That's who they were. They went off into captivity because they didn't pay taxes to the Babylonians that were ruling over them. And the Babylonians said, oh, really? You're not going to pay your taxes? They came in and they flattened the temple to Jehovah, and the flame to Jehovah went out. And the priestly class had told the ruling class that as long as we keep the flame to Jehovah going, nobody will conquer us. So they said, well, then great, we're not going to pay taxes anymore. So then the Babylonians came in and flattened it. Out went the flame. They took the priestly class and the elites, because these are the guys that started this, and they put them in chains and took them off to Babylon. The rest of the 10 tribes, the Palestinians, stayed there and were just fine. When these guys were off in Babylon for 70 years, they came up with a new religion. And in that religion, they had a God who was really interested in their national identity. That's why the Jews are the chosen people. They created this national identity. They created a religion that was about nationalism. And they made themselves, they put in the genealogy, they put their families in the genealogy. So on, you know, Adam begot so-and-so, who begot so-and-so, who begot so-and-so, who begot so-and-so, so that they could say, we're God's chosen rulers, do what we tell you. And then they made up this story, which never happened, that they had come out of the land of Egypt, that they were slaves in Egypt, which never happened. Even Jewish scholars, historical scholars will tell you that never happened. There was never they went through the desert and all, none of that stuff happened. So because they were in Babylon, they had to come up with a symbolic journey of them escaping Babylon, so they couldn't talk about Babylon, so they made up this stuff about coming out of Egypt and Moses and the Ten Commandments and all that other stuff. But what is the Ten Commandments? The Ten Commandments is nothing more than worship our state, worship our political system. Jehovah became the God of the political system, which is why the Romans picked it up later, because it works really well. And then after the 70 years of captivity and Babylon fell, they said, let's go back. Let's take this new religion we've created and let's go back and let's take our country back. And so that whole stuff about them coming into the land of Canaan and destroying the Canaanites. Do you know who the Canaanites are? The Canaanites are the Hebrew tribes. Don't believe me? Look at the Canaanite language and then look at Hebrew. Oh, guess what? It's the same language. So they made up a history where they destroyed their own ancestors. They killed off their own ancestors so that they could create a state where they could control everybody. And if you weren't part of the state, then you didn't believe in Jehovah, which meant we could stone you to death. Sound familiar? All of this religious nonsense is going away. All of it. We're in the midst of it coming apart right now. The last vestiges of it now are seen in our current political situation, where mainstream media is telling you you only have two choices. You either are pro-Hamas or you are pro-Israel. Those are your only choices. You either love terrorists or you love freedom. All that is going away. We're seeing that. And even though you may not see it yet, that is what this signifies. Even though those guys publicly have a position I don't agree with. But I think they're doing that because they have to pander to their base. Because it is the only subject that both the Republicans and the Democrats agree on. You know, the career politicians of both the Democrats and the Republicans both agree on that issue. They both have that, you know, they both are not dealing with the protests that are going on and about the Middle East. Anyway, I got off. You know, people need to wake up. People need to wake up. And we're waking up. All right, so we talked about a lot of crazy stuff today, and I went off on all kinds of different tangents. Hopefully that was entertaining for you. My main goal is to give you an experience so that when you are out there doing your interdimensional meditations, that you give yourself the right to have all kinds of crazy experiences. When you interact with light beings and you ask them, you know, is there anything that you want to tell me? Is there anything I should know? And they start telling you crazy stuff, like you are the king of, you know, such and such galaxy, or you are the creator of the, and on the fifth, you know, if you start having those kinds of things, experiences like that, I just want you to know that you're not alone. When I went through this, I was alone. I didn't know that, I had nobody else telling me that, oh yeah, that's what happens. That's what happens when you go to higher dimensions. Nobody was telling me that. So I was having to hold on to my, you know, keep myself together. And, you know, I didn't have much of a choice, because if I started doubting myself and I started thinking that I was going crazy, my physical body would start coming apart. I would start having all kinds of major physical problems. And if I started getting emotionally attached to the idea, like, you know, some being says, we're going to make you king of earth, I start thinking, oh, okay, so that means I have to what? I'm gonna go to Washington D.C. and become president, and I start going down that road, and then I start going crazy. I didn't want that. None of that sounded like any fun at all. So I had to learn to walk this tightrope of believing everything, accepting everything that was being shown to me and everything that was being told to me, while not being emotionally attached. Because if you become emotionally attached, you're going to end up misunderstanding what's being shown to you. Because remember that you're being told stuff that's coming from, number one, a higher dimensional state. So again, it's like trying to tell up or down to a two-dimensional person. They have no idea what up is, and there's nothing you can do that will ever make them understand what up or down is, because they can only operate on a two-dimensional plane. So when beings start telling you something that has to do with your higher dimensional self, your brain is going to interpret it in your language, and then it's going to interpret it in three-dimensional terms. So your understanding at the very least is going to be limited, and you might be, mistaken. So don't become emotionally attached to it, but allow yourself to accept it and then expand into it. I now have a completely different understanding of what it means to be ruler of this universe or king of earth. I have a completely different understanding of that now, and it doesn't make my head spin. But it's taken me 2 years to get to this place. So I just want you to have, if you have a strange experience, just know that there's at least been one person that's been there. And if you're working with me, if you're following this channel, right now we've only got 35 people watching me. I can go on, there's so many live streams going on of people talking about, there's people, gaming stuff, thousands of followers. If you're drawn to this and you actually want to sit and listen to it because it's talking to you, it means that you are one of these people who has been called, we use the word starseed, but it means you've been called to be one of these leaders who's going to lead the human race into the fifth dimension. And it doesn't matter who you think you are here. And it doesn't matter what physical, mental, emotional limitations you have here. Because out there, you're far beyond anything you could possibly imagine here. And so you are somebody who has chosen and or been chosen to begin the process of expanding into your higher dimensional awareness. When the shift comes, when that big event comes, if it is going to happen that way, we are going to be the people who will be ready for it. We will be the people who will be able to help others. We will be the people who will take leadership roles, because we won't be flipping out. Everybody else is going to be flipping out, not knowing what the hell's happening to them. Okay, so I'll leave it at that. Thank you guys for showing up. Hopefully by Wednesday, I will be ready to go, and that's my hope. I'm not going to do anything to damage myself physically, so we'll see. I mean, my meridians are still sort of popping off, so I'm going to continue to let them rest until then. All right, so now I'll open it up and see if there are any questions. I know that somebody was really going off and had a lot to say, but really weren't any questions. You're just having a lot of issues there. So Robin, I see that you're going through a lot, so I wish you the best. Keep doing the practices, even the free practices on this channel. And if you can, do the interdimensional meditation. That might be very helpful for you. Let's see. What else we got here? Any questions here? Fim Sample is here. Hi. Celestial Wolf is here. So Celestial Wolf, you've been asking some questions. My first response to your not here in the live stream, but the questions that you've asked me. My first feeling is that I want to encourage you to do the practices. Read my books, do the practices, because some of your questions are questions that I have answered in other places. So it's good to get educated on a bunch of basic assumptions about how I see the universe, how, what chakras are, all that stuff. If you haven't done any of the Maoshan practices, you can get started with that. And of course, I'm available if you want to. You can work with me if you go to thunderwizard.com and subscribe at the apprenticeship level, and I can work with you there. Other than that, keep up the good work, and I'm glad you're here. Let's see. Tim Z is doing the 3 1s right now. Good for you, sir. All right, let's see. A lot of. Anything else? Okay, I don't see any questions, so I guess we're good. All right, thank you, my friends. That's it. So, yeah, that's it. My books, michaelwilliamdenny.com, DENNEY. I talk about a lot of really great stuff in those books. If you really want to know more deeply about some of the stuff I talk about, go there. Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong, if you're looking for a place to start, I don't know where to go, what should I do? Go there and subscribe and just follow the instructions. If you want to get started with a basic Maoshan energy practice, do the Awakening the Immortals, which you can find in the shop, again at thunderwizard.com. If you want the high-level stuff, then we're talking about the Maoshan 5-element spirit fighting forms, and that will definitely give you the power to open up portals, and it's the most powerful practice I'm aware of. And then, of course, doing the interdimensional meditations. If you want to continue to keep bringing higher dimensional energy and keep the shift going, any of the live stream recorded, I've recorded all of them. If you go to live on my channel, you'll see all the live streams there. But the one that I encourage you is the most recent one that we did, which was Wednesday, August 14th. That was the one that broke everything wide open. I would go back and do that. If you want to do one over and over again, do that one. But any of them will work for sure. And Glitter Goddess gave me $9.99. Thank you. I appreciate that. Anybody else, if you want to support the channel, you can click on the dollar button there and throw money at me. Keep the channel going. That's it. Keep me in your meditations. I really want to get my energy back, my energy body back, so that I can get back into the meditations. But I'm happy to keep just working on myself. And anyway, I'm starting to babble, so I'm going to go now. Thank you, my friends. I love you all. Please remember, you are the most powerful being that has ever existed. The entire universe was created solely for your personal and selfish enjoyment. And that when you spend all of your energy giving yourself happiness and joy, all beings in the multiverse evolve spiritually, and the gods themselves get on their knees and bow before you, as do I. I thank you for creating this universe. This universe would not exist without you. I wouldn't exist if you didn't exist. You created me, and I thank you for that. And I appreciate you, and just know that just the fact that you exist is all that you need to do. There is nothing you can do that will make you more lovable than you are right now. And the only thing that gives you lovability and value is your existence. So just truly exist. Allow yourself to truly, authentically exist. And everybody will bow to you for that. That's it. I love you all. Take very good care of yourselves. I'll see you all very soon.